Hi, everybody. Welcome to November's webinar, homeowner webinar. This is Ask an Expert, and we have three, possibly four, very knowledgeable people on FFL today.
Hey, Jen,
Yes.
she's still letting people in, so you might
Oh, I'm
wait
not
just
going
a
to
minute.
start. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I
okay,
won't. I'm just like,
okay. Thank you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no problem. If everyone could put, maybe your favorite plant in the chat box. I will try to let me stop sharing for right now so I can see the chat box. Sweet almond is one from Barbara. Let's see what else we have. Dotted horse mint. We'll start as soon as the participants get in the room. What else? What other plants? Seminole pumpkin, that's a good one. Those are good. Muley grass, shrimp plant, mango. Wow, we've got a lot of them. Avocado trees. Looks like people are still coming in, so we'll give it one more minute. Firebush is a good one. We'll start at 11:02. I think it's sort of stabilized now. New to Florida gardening, so you don't know yet. That is a lot of our participants, so welcome. Feel free to ask questions. One more minute, we'll give it. Pentas, blue flag iris. You guys are saying, doing some good gardening. All right, well, let's go ahead and start here. This, like I said, is Ask an Expert. It's November's webinar, homeowner webinar in this series. I am Jen Marvin, the Florida Friendly Education Coordinator, and we have several FFL experts today. Let me just tell you that your microphones are muted. So I am going to ask everybody to use the Q&A box to submit their questions. The chat will be disabled. It's a little bit hard to follow questions in the chat. So please use the Q&A box. Make sure you take our survey at the end. And also try to keep, if you can, the questions to the topics that we've discussed today. That's ground covers and turf alternatives, foodscaping, and pond health and management. So what's next? December 17th is the basics of plant propagation with Bart Schutzman. He's a lecturer in environmental horticulture at UF. If you've been watching for a while, we've seen him a couple times in this series. And then next year, we are starting new programming, obviously. January 21st, I have Mark Frank, who is an extension botanist at UF in the herbarium at the Florida Museum of Natural History. He is great, all things plants. He is an amazing resource. He is going to do a topic, the houseplant renaissance. He's going to look at what houseplants are back in style, why they're back in style, and then I think he's going to give you a tour of his own houseplants. So that is what's up with the webinar series in 2005. We also have workshops on spotting and identifying diseases, some HOA topics, colorful plants, invasive animals, wetland, biophilia, and then everybody asked for design. So we're going to have a design topic yet to be determined with Gail Hansen. So let's get to our panelists today. We have 4 panelists. We have Brooke Moffis, who is a commercial horticulture agent in Lake County. We have Amanda Merrick, who is the Florida Friendly Landscaping Agent in Marion County, as well as Mark Bailey, who studies or does food systems and sustainable agriculture. He's an agent also in Marion County. And then we have Michelle Atkinson, who is an environmental horticulture agent in Manatee County. She is an expert on ponds and pond health. So, Brooke, do you want to say a couple words about your background before we get started very quickly?
Sure. Yeah. So I've worked in the horticulture industry for over 20 years. I worked for Walt Disney World, and that's what brought me to Florida in their hydroponic production greenhouse. And then I've also worked in floriculture in Atlanta for a really nice landscape company. And so I have a master's in entomology and nematology from the University of Florida, and I'm currently studying for my PhD in the School of Natural Resources and Environments.
Thank you. How about Amanda, will you just say a few things about
Sure.
your background?
Absolutely. So I've been the Florida Friendly Landscaping Agent here in Marion County since 2017. My background is wildlife ecology conservation, working with invasive plants for the State and National Park Service. And I've been in extension for roughly 10 years. So ask me anything lawn palm related. That's what I'm here to help with folks here in Marion County, and hopefully saving some water too while we're at it.
Great, thank you. Mark, would you say just a few words?
Sure, I have a pretty wide background. Originally went to UF for a also degree in entomology and nematology. I got to see another entomology graduate here in the meeting. And I have about 10 years of extension experience, both at University of Georgia for a couple of years and a little over 8 years here in Marion County. And a lot of my focus is on small farms and on fruit and vegetable production. And I've been working with Amanda on the kind of foodscaping concept for nearly about 4 years now.
Great, thank you. And then Michelle, would you just say a few words about yourself?
Certainly. Hi, I'm Michelle Atkinson. My degree is from, my undergrad is from Stetson, and then I have a master's from the University of Florida in natural resources. And I have been in extension for 17 years. Of those 17 years, I think I've been working on stormwater pond issues for about 13.
Yeah.
So people in ponds occupies a lot of my time. I also oversee a mobile irrigation lab and teach commercial landscape and pond contractors their licensing stuff. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Michelle. So we've got a lot of different expertise here today. And I think we can get into the questions now. Let's see. Hi, I live in Ocala. I would like to introduce pink mimosa and frog fruit to my front yard. If you recommend this, where can I purchase it? First, Brooke, would you recommend that ground cover?
Yeah, absolutely. So sunshine mimosa really needs full sun, and it's going to thrive in really dry conditions. And then it can get out competed when we get a lot of wet conditions, especially if it's we're in the rainy season. But the frog fruit it can take some dry conditions, but it can take more moisture than the sunshine mimosa. So I think those two can be blended nicely together. When one starts to maybe fade in its vigor, the other one may pick up depending on our seasons. So I think when we're planting with these native ground covers, we need to expect some seasonality. But I think that's also what's really interesting and what could be very beneficial with growing these ground covers is the ebb and flow of, maintaining this green cover, but with different plant materials that are adapted to the different seasons.
Thank you. That's great. And where generally would you look for that plant? Probably not at Home Depot.
Probably not. Although, if it's the more we request it, the more you're going to see it in the larger box stores, hopefully. So you're going to have to go probably to a native plant nursery in order to find it. So I know for us in Groveland, we have Green Isle Gardens, which is really nice. Shady Oaks Gatheralls over in Sumter County. I'm not as familiar with the Ocala native nurseries, but maybe Amanda Merritt can help us out with that one.
Yeah, we have Chiappini, which is technically actually in Hawthorne, so just outside of Marion County, but the Chiappini Native Nursery is one of the closer ones here, and our own Marion County Master Gardeners also sell quite a few natives. We're pretty picked over after our fall plant sale, but the closest native nursery to us that I'm aware of is Chiappini.
I would also comment that the Florida Association of Native Plant Nurseries or Native Nurseries, I think it's FANN,
Yeah.
has a website. And so wherever you're located, you could look up native nurseries nearby.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's go to another question. What are your recommendations for a shrub that can be used as a privacy screen, but that will thrive under oaks and shade? Amanda, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So, a shrub that can be used as a privacy screen, one of my favorites that's a native is anise. There's two types of anise. There's Ocala anise that has like a yellowish green bloom. It's blooming beautifully this time of the year. One of my more favorites actually is the Florida anise, and it has a beautiful red exotic looking bloom. These are not edible anise, but these are a native evergreen shrub that works perfectly as a privacy hedge. Other than that, I don't know how large you're wanting the plant to get, but you can also plant some hollies as well. There's multiple holly species that do well as a native privacy. One of the more common Florida-friendly non-native shrubs is the sweet viburnum, but it does far better in sunlight conditions. So if you're looking for shade, I would look for those anise bushes, and there's quite a few nurseries that do sell those varieties, both larger non-native nurseries and those that do.
Okay, and would you say that is a good recommendation for all of Florida or just for where you are in Central?
The anise, to my knowledge, is pretty much great for Central Florida and North. I'm not as familiar as the South Florida area, if that would be a good plant. Maybe someone else here on the panel would know, but definitely for Central and North Florida.
Okay. Michelle, what about in Manatee? Is that a good plant?
Sorry, it
Yes.
is. I would also look at wild coffee. That's another one that's an understory that would do well in those areas and does terrific here in Manatee County. And there's probably a whole lot that I'm not thinking of. So, but
Great.
yes, I think that they both would do well here.
Great, thank you.
Thought of another one for
Yeah.
North and Central Florida. Although they could be quite expensive. So depending on how much you need to screen, camellias, which I'm a camellia fan, you can get, just so many beautiful blooms from camellia. If you can afford it, they're a lot more expensive. So
And if you're north of Tampa, that line that goes across the state, if you're north of there, we can't grow them down here. They get too buggy and fungusy.
Yeah, and
Right.
someone in the chat mentioned banana shrub too. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's one of my favorites. I came across one during a site visit recently, and it was phenomenal. It is related to the magnolia. It has a tiny little magnolia-like flower that smells like bananas. It's very strange, but that one does also very well in partial shade and is evergreen.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Let's get a foodscaping question. Mark, how would you define foodscaping?
Well, really, that's a better question for Amanda. She's the
Okay.
the expert on that topic. But really, foodscaping is essentially the combination, the artful combination of edible ornamental plants set into a landscape with the dual purposes of having something that grows well in your area, and it looks good and it tastes good. Hopefully, basically a little bit of both.
Great, thank you. Amanda, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, that's essentially it. It's really anything that you want it to be that works in your landscape. It's a mix of ornamental plants that may not necessarily be edible with a mix of preferably perennial edible plants that'll persist to be attractive in your landscape and productive with very minimal care, such as water or pesticides. So that's what we're hoping for.
Great, thank you.
Also, I want to emphasize this, not just any plant that is edible. It needs to be the kind of plants that are really suited for your specific location, because what works in your yard may not work in your neighbor's yard down the road. And it is region specific, because we do have in my opinion, excellent publication. Edible Ornamental Landscaping for North Central Florida is a publication that Man and I worked on for quite some time. And we are working eventually on an extended publication that talks about the kind of different regions in which you can grow different edible ornamentals. So do keep that in mind. That what you grow in South Florida is not what we grow in, say, North Florida.
Great, thank you. That'll be a great publication to look forward to. Let's see. What type of plants are good for small areas around my home? This person is in Orlando, but if any, Amanda, do you want to answer that, or Brooke?
Small areas around the home. If they could just pop in a little bit more context, like, are they looking for shrubs? Are they looking for ground covers or perennials? You know, some of the tried and true that do well in this area. If we're wanting something very small, like society garlic or African bulbine, those can be very nice for a smaller perennial type plant. You know, there are some, you could always think of some of the smaller native shrubs too, like dwarf Yopon holly that can be maintained very compact. So that's another one that I can think of, dwarf Walter's viburnum, although that can actually get large eventually too. So it really depends what you're looking for. If there's, you know, if you're interested in smaller trees, chaste vitex has beautiful purple blooms and really attracts the pollinators. Sweet almond bush can be pruned into a small tree too. So those are just some examples for the different forms of plants that you might be interested in.
And sticking with the foodscaping theme too, one of our favorites we like to recommend for small spaces around a house. Now, when we say small space, we're not talking about right up against the house. You still want 2.5 to 3 feet from the foundation. But the native Darrow's blueberry is another great native that's also happens to be edible, and it's a beautiful, beautiful little semi-evergreen ornamental blueberry that makes a really good hedge around the home too, if you have, again, that 2.5 feet space minimum.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Michelle, how does urban stormwater runoff contribute to larger environmental issues and, you know, such as harmful algae or algal blooms?
Sure. So our stormwater ponds are kind of like the liver of our stormwater systems. Just like your liver filters out pollutants in your body, our stormwater ponds in our communities filter out those pollutants before they move on into our natural bodies of water. So once those pollutants, like nutrients, especially nitrogen and phosphorus, travel downstream into those natural bodies of water, they can definitely cause harm. They can cause harm even in the pond itself, but as they move on, that nutrient causes things to grow. We put the nitrogen and phosphorus on our lawns and plants to make it grow. It also causes algae to grow. And so things like blue-green algae in freshwater systems can be real problematic in those very high nitrogen and phosphorus systems or areas, especially if you have reclaimed water. A lot of reclaimed water has nitrogen and phosphorus in it when it comes to you. And so runoff into a stormwater pond will raise those levels, and that moves on into natural bodies of water. And then once that actually enters out into our either Atlantic Ocean or Gulf of Mexico or any of those brackish waters in between, we can prolong red tide occurrence there. So having those nutrients available, it can actually prolong any types of red tide that may come in. Now, it doesn't cause red tide. I want to be clear on that. That's not the cause of red tide. But if there is a red tide bloom and those nutrients are available, then there's a food source there for it to hang around a bit longer.
Thank you, Michelle.
Mhm.
How about this? Mark, do you want to take a stab at this one? What type of edible plant would be recommended for a front yard with full sun in the Apopka area?
There's actually quite a few perennial trees that would do very well in full sun in a front yard. I'll list them pretty quickly. My favorite is probably going to be a loquat. Those do well in a wide range of environments. They grow kind of medium slow, and they grow about as tall as they are wide, so you don't have to do a whole lot of pruning for loquats. Another good option is going to be a mulberry. They are deciduous. They drop their leaves, usually starting around November. And mulberries will grow extremely quickly. So if you start with even a 1-gallon, pot and you plant it and you give it the appropriate irrigation and time to get established, a mulberry can grow, in my case, for example, like 15 feet in a single year. And so they're incredibly productive very, very quickly, and you can get cuttings from them. Another good option is persimmons. You would want to get a Japanese persimmon. There's astringent, non-astringent varieties, but many of them do quite well. Fuyu in particular does very well. A couple other plants that do well. Let's see here. What's another good one? You can grow some vines, like a passion fruit is an option. Muscadine grapes are an option if you have full sun. But really, the persimmon, the loquat and the mulberry are the top 3 that I would recommend. But if you want more information, you definitely can look into the Edible Ornamental Landscaping Guide for North Central Florida, which is located within the Apopka area.
Great, thank you. So Brooke, are there ground covers that we can walk on to replace grass in our backyard? This person has various sun exposure in St. Petersburg and says that right now they just have mulch that floats away.
So I think really the only ground cover I can think of off the top of my head is that you can walk across is probably the sunshine mimosa, but that's going to need full sun. I think a lot of the other ground covers they can't, take the repeated wear from walking across it. So that's maybe dichondra for some of the shadier spots, but you're not going to be able to find dichondra because it's really kind of considered a weed. Although I think it has a lot of potential for a future ground cover in wetter spots and in spots that have a little bit more shade. And I'd actually like to defer maybe to Amanda's to see if she has any other suggestions too for a ground cover you can walk across.
The only one that came to mind for that type of sunlight was the twin flower. And I know it's similar to what Brooke said, it won't tolerate constant traffic, but it can tolerate some. Specifically the oblong twin flower, it's more drought tolerant than the swamp twin flower. And I did find dichondra seed, Hancock Seed Company actually sells it on their website as a ground cover. So, or you can come to my house, I have plenty of it.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I just like what Amanda was saying, the twin flower though, I would like to say, what she was saying, I think it could take a little bit of traffic. Perennial peanut can take a little bit of traffic. It just can't take repeated traffic. So, if you're wanting to walk through a certain area every single day, then mimosa and maybe dichondra are it, I think, for the traffic. So I think that's one of the big considerations, right, when we're trying to replace our lawns is how much traffic does that area receive?
Yeah, that's true. Michelle, how about how do you deal with compact soil? How would be the way that you would recommend?
Certainly, yep. I don't, if you see me kind of looking off to the side, I'm trying to answer some of the questions here in the Q&A, and that was one of them. So top dressing is something that we address quite a lot. We have a lot of newly developed communities, and when they do that, this relates to stormwater ponds. They dig out the stormwater ponds, so the soils that are like 15, 20 feet down, they put that on top of the land, and those soils are typically pretty compacted because they've been down underground and they don't have a lot of nutrients. And now that's what's on top for our topsoil. So new communities especially have issues with compacted soil, and we recommend what we call top dressing. And it's just simply taking like a compost type product or even topsoil and sprinkling it across, on top of your turf and your landscape beds and letting that soil work in. If you have a really bad situation, there is a type of what's it called? It's what's it called, guys? The thing that turns and pulls the straws out.
The verticutter?
An aerator.
No.
Aerator.
Aerator, thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Two types of aeration. One is like spikes and it pokes holes in the ground, and we do not recommend that because it just further compacts the soil. But there's another aerator or aeration type of machine that pulls straws out of the soil, and then you just leave those kind of straws, it's just soil, and you leave that up, and that just opens up some of the soil for air. And that's really what you're trying to do, is get organic material in there and get some airflow in there, because that's what's missing in the compacted soil environment. So top dressing, you can't just do it one time though. We typically talk about doing it quarterly, semi-annually, just a little bit. You don't want to cover up your turf. You don't want to smother it, but sprinkling it around either topsoil, compost. There's even some products out there that are being advertised as good for this. But sprinkling that around so it slowly works into the soil and gets that organic material and that airspace in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I can add on to that too, Jennifer.
Sure.
If you are replacing a lawn or you're replacing a large bed, you can till compost into the soil before you plant. And we actually have some recommendations on that. I want to get the number right. So what I'll do is I'll put it in the chat.
Great.
As far as like the application rate.
Okay, that would be great. Let's see here. Got a lot of questions now. What can I use to kill crabgrass out of my St. Augustine grass? Michelle, do you want to take that one? It looks like you.
I was actually just gonna type that in. There's a product and I have to double check it though. Unfortunately, it's really hard to do this because when we're killing weeds in our turf grass, we typically look for a broadleaf weed killer, and that's different from turf grass, right? But this is crabgrass, so it's a grass in a grass. So we can't find those products that will identify it being different and only kill it because they're all grasses. So there is a product, and I've got to look real quick to see if it works in St. Augustine on crabgrass, I believe, or zoysia, and I can't remember which.
All right.
Can I come
Yes,
back
you
as
can
soon
come
as I
back.
get the answer to that? Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Sure. Let's see. Amanda, is there a native shrub that has a nice scent?
I was looking at that one and I was racking my brain this entire time trying to figure that one
And of
out.
course, I asked you. Yeah.
There's several non-native Florida friendly plants that I can think of, but as far as native plants that has a really good scent, I mean, I know of plants that have a scented leaf, like the red bay tree, the anise. Someone asked me to spell that. It's ANISE. That one has a really nice scented leaf. But as far as I'm assuming you mean a bloom, a scented bloom is what I'm assuming the question is. Other than magnolias, they have a really lovely scent to them. Obviously, the native magnolia tree can get quite large. Do be aware of the little gem. The dwarf magnolias can still get around 30 to 40 feet, which is impressive. Does anyone else think of a native that has a sweet flowering scent? Oh, wait, there was one brook that Green Isle Gardens had. It was a native shrub, more for South Florida. And I'm blanking on the name.
I can't remember either. I'll do a
I'll
little
come back
research
to that
while
one.
we're down
I
here.
know it, I see it in my mind, but I'm blanking on the name of it. But unfortunately, most of the ones that come to my mind are not native, like the sweet almond someone had mentioned. Gardenia, obviously, butterfly ginger has an incredible scent to it too. But there is one that is a evergreen shrub, more for South Florida, and I will get back to you.
Right. Michelle, did you have the turf answer?
Yeah, unfortunately, the product is for zoysia, not St.
Okay.
Augustine. And the problem is crabgrass and St. Augustine are an awful lot alike. And so it's hard to find a product that can differentiate those. So my best recommendation is if you can invent one, you can make millions, but in the meantime, you have to spot treat. And that's the same with Bermuda grass as well. So number one, keeping your turf in the best condition that you can will help overcome weeds. Cutting it high, mowing it high can help shade out weed seeds. So that's number one, is always mow St. Augustine. It's 4 inches is our recommendation. And that's the blade. That's not down to the base where the roots are. That's the blade. And so that can help shade out the weed seeds. But if you have an infestation, unfortunately, then spot spraying that area or hand removal, but spot spraying will be the most effective if you get what's called a systemic that treats all the way through the plant. So it kills the entire plant, including the roots, not just a contact killer, which will do it really quick, but won't get the roots for you. So getting some kind of a systemic pesticide that's labeled for crabgrass, and or you can get a broad spectrum one that's kills everything. The one that nobody likes to talk about is the glyphosate products, but that would do it. So spot spraying the area out, and either if it's a big spot, then you can put some sod back in its place or some plugs back in its place, or just encouraging good growth of St. Augustine so they can fill in. That's that's my best recommendation, unless one of y'all have a better recommendation for that. It is a challenge. Both Bermuda grass and crabgrass in St. Augustine can be a real challenge.
I remembered the plant.
Great.
Or actually, Googled it. It's the wild olive, also called Osmanthus americanus, but wild olive or American devilwood. I came across it the first time at Green Isle Gardens. And its range is actually more extensive than I thought. It's pretty much the panhandle down to 9B. But it's an evergreen and the smell was incredible, although it can get rather large.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Mark, what is the best time to plant a Thai mulberry? It's pretty specific, but
Oh, yeah. So, and actually, we work closely with dwarf Thai mulberries, and I have probably 15 planted on my land. So, really big fan of those. Best time to plant them is just about any time, so long as you give them irrigation and allow them time to establish. That is one of the number one mistakes I see people making, is they get these big trees and small trees, whatever, and they put it out onto their land, and they do not give the time to get established. And irrigation is how you get them established. So going beyond that, the ideal time is probably going to be when they are dormant, when the weather is cooler. This is true for most trees. If you're planting in the middle of the summertime, you don't provide irrigation, that can stress it more. So for dwarf Thai mulberries, I would say wintertime is the best time to do so, and keep them lightly irrigated, even if they're not actively growing. You don't see a lot of leaves. Helps the roots are growing slowly under the ground. But we established our edible landscape in midsummer. We hand watered it in, and then we provided irrigation through polytubing, and did quite well. So hopefully that answered the question. Anytime is good for mulberries, so long as you irrigate them.
great. Thank you so much.
Mm.
Let's see. Let's go to Brooke. What do you do to get rid of sand spurs?
That's a good question.
I know,
I
right?
don't know if I have a good answer. I might have.
Does anybody else want to answer that one?
I mean, I would think, a spot treatment with glyphosate. I think there's something with the pH in the soil that can, encourage sand spurs. But Amanda or Michelle, do either one of you have
Or
a better?
Mark, do you have I see you on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a for my graduate project. It was a sand spur project. I think the worst weed you don't like, and sand spurs were definitely my top pick. I've pulled many out of my leg before. So sand spurs are a grass, and you can kill, of course, with glyphosate, as Brooke mentioned. But if you're in a setting where you're concerned about it growing next to broadleaf plants, you can use an herbicide that is specific to grasses. And probably from wrong, but I think let's see here. I'm trying to give you one. What's one herbicide that is a selective herbicide that only affects grasses in a lawn setting? So I'm mostly an ag. Does anyone have any idea about an herbicide that's specific for grasses? It kills grasses only.
Blazafop,
Fluazafop and
which is Fusilade in trade name.
okay, so Fluazafop, Fusilade, and I think clethodim is another one, maybe approved for lawns. But another thing you can use is a pre-emergent herbicide. So if you don't want things coming up, we can use a pre-emergent herbicide in late spring, and they usually will come up around summertime. You see a lot of these sand spurs in late summer and into fall is when a lot of them will pop up.
Okay, but Flazafop is a grass killer, so you can
Yes.
use it in your landscape beds if you have sand spurs in your landscape beds,
But not in your lawn.
but not in your lawn, because you will kill your lawn too.
Yes. And
Michelle,
glyphosate
go ahead.
will kill everything, by the way. So if you do use glyphosate, spot spraying just an area. Glyphosate has little or no soil activity. So if you can keep it shielded and just go onto the leaves of your target plant, it usually will kill just that plant and not plants adjacent to it.
So if you don't know, glyphosate is Roundup. The brand name is Roundup. Just
Oh, careful, careful. Because there are some new Roundup products that are not glyphosate.
I'm sorry. Good.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So there are some new Roundup products. They have different letters behind their names, or pro or whatever, that are not glyphosate products. So just always check what your active ingredient is.
Thank you. And that's why we
Yes.
have you all for.
Also, one really quick point, if you are
Yeah.
going to be applying any herbicides, please read the label carefully. And if you're not familiar with reading a label, and I know it can get quite long and complicated, feel free to call one of your local extension offices, and they can assist you with how to understand your label.
That's
Apply
great.
things safely and correctly.
Yes, that's a good FFL point. Amanda, did you have something?
I just wanted to thank the folks regarding the lovely scented native. I wanted to thank the folks that mentioned fringe tree and Simpson stopper. And another one too that I recently came across is called Garberia. That one also had a very nice scent and it's blooming this time of the year, but you'll definitely have to go to a native plant nursery for that one. So I just want to thank those folks for those other comments.
Great, thank you so much. Brooke, what is a good ground cover for a gopher tortoise? Is there one that they prefer? Do you know? Am I asking you all the questions?
Yeah, no, that's okay. I do not know the answer.
Okay,
Prickly pear.
I answered that. Are you not able to see my answers on here?
no,
Mm-mm.
I can't. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, that's okay. I did answer it.
Okay,
They like
sorry about that.
forbs and things, but there's actually a plant that's called a gopher apple.
Mhm.
It's a native plant and they love those.
They love
They
those
like
and
little fruits and stuff, but they have to be able to reach it.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a number of plants, forbs especially, that they enjoy. But if you're looking to plant some plants for gopher tortoise, I would say the gopher apple would be one of your best
Yeah.
bets.
Thank you. And Michelle, can you explain what forbs is?
Not as well as probably
Brooke.
somebody else could.
Okay.
Anybody else want to take that?
Yeah, I can actually take that. Hey, between the four of us, we'll get a lot of stuff answered, right?
Absolutely. That's why you're here.
Yeah. So okay, a forbs, I had never heard the term when I was in horticulture, and I have a bachelor's in horticulture and I've worked in horticulture. Then when I started studying ecology, they used the term forbs in abundance. Actually, I'm writing a paper right now where I use the term forbs in abundance. It's just an herbaceous flowering plant. That's all it is. Herbaceous flowering plant. So
Okay.
not necessarily in the grass family. So
Mhm.
if that helps clear things up,
Yeah.
it's herbaceous
Yeah.
flower.
Mark,
something
do
like
you
the
have a comment on that as
pawpaws.
well?
Like the little pawpaws would be great for them too.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Michelle, are 10-foot wide pond buffers recommended if composed of grass, turf grass, allowed to grow 18 inches along with natives and weeds? They're hearing that's not the best to have this buffer due to invasives getting in littorals.
Yes. Okay. So our recommendation is to leave a buffer around stormwater ponds. We don't want the grass clippings getting in. And we typically talk more about planting plants in that area and establishing an actual like landscape bed, but a very dense, like what's behind me, some of these muley grasses and things that can fill in and hold the soils in place. That's really what we're talking about. But sometimes we tell people a very inexpensive way, if you have erosion happening and you want to slow it down, an inexpensive way is just to stop mowing, because the longer the shoot on a plant, the longer the leaf, the longer the root system. So if you grow taller plants, you'll have deeper roots. The problem with that is if you have just turf grasses in that area, like Bahia grass, then you're great. That's wonderful. And 18 inches will work well. But most of us around stormwater ponds don't have just turf grass. We have a lot of weed infestations in those areas. And so when we just stop mowing, it creates essentially an invasive seed bank for the birds and other critters, including your pets, to spread those weed seeds around. So we need to really look carefully and do some kind of treatment for those specific weeds, if that's the plan that we're going to go with. I don't typically recommend doing those. It's called a no-mow zone, is what they refer to this as. And I really don't like them for this very reason, because they do become invasive seed banks. And so we really talk more about preparing the area well to get rid of torpedo grass. Seems to be a really big problem across the state, and then planting it with plants and putting down like a pine straw that will hold, not bark mulch, which is going to run into the pond, but a pine straw until those plants can fill in to keep the weeds out. But that is the way that we recommend. And there's actually a database. I put it in somebody's answer. How am I able to like share it with everybody? Is there a way
Sure, I
to
believe
do
you
that?
can put it in the chat.
Oh.
We still have the chat, we just don't.
Does everybody sees the chat? Okay, so
I
I
believe
will
so.
Okay, I will put a link in the chat for a database of plants that can be used around stormwater ponds, and you get to pick them out for the aesthetics or the function or whatever you're looking to do it around that pond. You can
Okay.
choose it based on that.
So Michelle, how would you define then the low maintenance zone that FFL recommends and that your county sometimes requires in relationship to a no mow?
Sure.
Yeah.
When we talk about low maintenance, we're talking about really no chemical. And we like to have no mowing as well, but sometimes we do have to go in and trim things up or spot treat some things. If you have problem plants, and typically around stormwater ponds we do, there's willows and all kinds of things that'll pop up that we do need to treat those out or hand pull those out. So, you know, low maintenance means not fertilizing the area, using as little chemical as possible, but sometimes we do have to use a little bit of chemical to treat those invasive problems that we can have in there. Trying not to mow it if we don't have to, which would mean planting some plant beds around there. Now, we also have the ring of responsibility that we talk about, which is 10 feet. And I don't think that we need 10-foot plant beds necessarily, but we don't want to fertilize within 10 feet of a pond. The plant beds, we're seeing them anywhere from 5 to 6 feet from the edge of the water. And they tend to be effective for erosion control if you go 5 to 6 feet with a plant bed. Is that answering the question?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
The one of the main issues with that though is grass clippings. We're trying to keep grass clippings out of the pond because you know, grass clippings pull nitrogen and phosphorus out of the water. So when they go into the water, they carry that with them. And so it's like fertilizing water when we put grass clippings in our pond or when they end up in the pond. So the main goal of those low maintenance or plant beds around ponds is really trying to keep grass clippings out.
Sure. And that's one of the reasons we recommend putting your grass clippings back on your lawn too, for FFL. Let's see. All right, Amanda, what do you think of planting non-natives?
I was looking at that question. That is an excellent question. And you'll get different responses depending on which professional you ask. But in general, Florida Friendly Landscaping Program does recommend non-native plants as long as they are not invasive. So that means these are plants that can really start to spread and change how ecosystems function. So as long as a plant is not considered invasive, or shows signs that it could become invasive, planting non-native plants can be beneficial. Majority of the plants available to us through the nursery trade are non-native. It's just kind of the nature of how things have gone. Many of our nursery plants available to us are from Asia, with similar climate to our own. So they do very well here with minimal maintenance. Still always do right plant, right place, but many non-native plants are perfectly fine, benign. Some of them are even beneficial. The complication comes with pollinators because there is growing research that shows that really nothing is as good for pollinators as native plants. The pollen is of higher quality, the nectar is of higher quality, and even their time frame, their biology has really evolved to match pollinators better than some of the non-native plants that may bloom wrong season or may grow longer than they need. So my recommendation always is try if you can to plant natives. Even a few, 2-3 native species really can have an impact for pollinators, but don't be afraid of planting non-native plants as long as they are Florida friendly. Thankfully, the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program has a plant guide as well as a plant app that is available on the website. And that plant app stays up to date quite a lot. And there's a filter that is very useful. So you can filter it out if you want sun or shade or where your zone is. It can filter out plants that may be toxic to a pet. And you can also specify native or non-native. So that is my long-winded answer to that one.
Yes, it's always right plant, right place, regardless of what native or non-native. So does
Correct.
anybody else, I know it's a big topic,
Yeah, I could
Let's
add
see.
on to that a
Yeah.
little bit. You know, I think one of the reasons we're seeing a big movement in native plant production and native plant request is because of just the massive development that's going on, especially in Central Florida. It's different areas of the state. You know, if you're in Gainesville or further north, you have lots of forested areas. In Central Florida and Lake County and Orlando, when they grade the land and they build, they completely remove all existing vegetation. And so that habitat is completely destroyed. And so I think people are they see the massive development going on all around them. They see natural areas that are being removed. So I think people are thinking, how can we use the land that we do have? How can we use our yards to support biodiversity? How can we support the pollinators? You have to have insects so that you can have birds. And I think people are just so much more attuned to this now just because of the massive development. And you know, it's interesting. I have family that lives in rural Tennessee, and when I talk about planting for biodiversity and for wildlife, they look at me like I have three horns on my head, you know, because it's just all around them. But when you're in an area where we're exposed to all this massive development, I think this issue is really front and center. And we can do a lot in our yards, and a lot of that's planting native plants, and then the strategic use, I think, of other ornamental plants too.
Sure. All right. Let's see. Mark, can you recommend good vegetables for raised beds and shaded areas? This person's from Central Florida, but if you have, you know, recommendations
Vegetables
different
for
areas.
raised beds in shaded areas.
Mhm.
So most vegetables do best in full sun or partial sun. Let's see here, shaded areas. You know, if it's in a raised bed, you can still grow ginger and turmeric. Those grow quite well. I grow them. And if you want to know where you want to get the cheapest ginger and turmeric from, that's the grocery store. So you can actually go to the grocery store and pick up some of the rhizomes, and you break them off, and about the size of one's thumb or so would do a pretty good job. And plant it about 2 to 3 inches deep. You can put them in rows in a raised bed if you wanted to, and they'll eventually come up. Usually takes around 2 to 3 months for them to emerge, especially after winter, maybe like late April before you see them, but they will emerge. So they do quite well in partial sun. But many of your leafy greens, as long as you're getting some sunlight that's fairly strong throughout some of the day, then most of your leafy greens, your kale, your kohlrabi, those kind of things, Swiss chard, lettuces, those all do quite well in partial sun, so long as it's kind of consistent. If it's like a deep shade, you're not going to have much productivity, but most of your leafy greens are going to do okay. But again, the ginger and turmeric are really interesting options, and those can be grown in either raised bed, in the ground, or in pots. They're fairly compact plants, so big fans of those.
All right, thank you. Let's see. This person has 2 lobster claw palms. What is the best way to prevent the rhizomes from shooting all over? And I would suspect this is a good question for any plant that has rhizomes. Amanda, would you like to take that?
So lobster claw is not a palm, it's a heliconia, unless there's some other palm that I'm not familiar with. But lobster claw, I mean, it's a beautiful tropical plant. I ran into it the first time in Trinidad and Tobago. But as far as the rhizomes go, I mean, honestly, mowing around that area is really the best answer that I have for you. Some folks will put in barriers. For example, bamboo, there are actual barriers, like root barriers that you can put in to help keep them in check. Some are different materials, some are a thick plastic, some are metal. So if you cannot mow in that area, that would be my really only other recommendation would be some type of barrier, unless somebody else has some other recommendations.
Michelle, did you, I see you're unmuting. There you go.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm sorry. I was typing in the
Oh,
answer.
that's all right. That's okay.
If you want to restate it real quick, I'll try to answer it.
It was how to prevent rhizomes from shooting all over. So
So if you can, again, get a systemic and I don't know, maybe Amanda was saying that, a systemic type of herbicide, and then you can directly apply it to that plant. A systemic moves through the plant into the root systems, which would be the rhizome of this particular plant. So any kind of a systemic that would be labeled for that particular type of plant, you could directly apply it to it, give it a little time, and it should help you. If not removing the plant entirely, at least loosen those root systems so you can pull them up is sometimes even helpful.
Yeah, that was, and I'm glad you brought that up because this was for their lobster claw, their heliconia that's kind of spreading in places they don't want it to. That was going to be my other recommendation too, is split it and share it with friends and loved ones.
Yeah, this person says they've been cutting them off at the soil line or just under. They
That's
wanted to
pretty
know if
much
there's a
really
better
all
way.
you can do. Yeah, other than mowing and some type of root barrier.
Okay, great. Let's see. How do you get rid of chickweed drymeria? Does anybody?
I'm going to refer folks to the weed management guide for
Thank you,
Florida
yeah.
lawns. That's an excellent publication that has a very useful table at the end of that. It also targets grassy weeds and broadleaf weeds because we could spend all day just talking about different active ingredients. So I definitely refer you to the University of Florida's Weed Management Guide for Florida Lawns is an excellent publication.
Great, thank you.
And I'm going to put in the chat a link, and I did put some
Thank you.
things in the chat. I'm hoping everybody can see
Perfect.
them. I'm going to put Chris Marble's website in here. He's done some really great work. He's one of our weed researchers, and he's done some great work classifying weeds by color. So if you don't know what you have, you can identify it more easily with his work. But also he does these great videos where he identifies the weed and talks about, its life cycle and talks about how to control that weed. So I'm going to put that link up.
Great, and I believe Chris Marble has also done some webinars for us as well. So if you go to the floridafriendlylandscaping.com website, our homepage, you can go to webinars under training, and we'll have a list of all of our past webinars, and you'll see Dr. Marble's presentation in there. Let's see. This person would like to know if there are arborists or maybe other people in IFAS or extension, maybe your local extension, that can check palms or other trees or plants for diseases. This person said specifically in HOAs, but can you, maybe Brooke, can you tell us what extension can do in that, in order to help people who have questions like that?
Sure. So we offer, most of our extension offices offer a plant clinic that is staffed by Master Gardener volunteers. And so you are welcome to bring pictures by. You're welcome to email pictures to the plant clinic as well. Palm diseases, to me, compared to other plant diseases, they're very symptomatic. So they're fairly, I don't want to say easy, but they're easier than maybe some other plants to diagnose. So sometimes we can have a pretty good hunch based on the picture, but you're really never going to know completely or accurately, I should say, unless you send it to the disease lab with IFAS. And so we have the disease lab in Gainesville, and I can put a link in the chat as well to that, a disease lab in Gainesville where you can send leaves of the palms. We have a disease lab in South Florida with Dr. Bader's lab, where you can do lethal bronzing testing. I have a palm that's dying right now from lethal bronzing. So anyway, I'm bummed about that, but it's all throughout our area. If you go to the plant clinic and you may even want to request the extension agent, ask them if they can look at those pictures and see if they, can at least say, hey, yeah, that might be lethal bronzing. Here's what you need to do to get it tested, that type of thing. So we're here to help you. So you can start with the Master Gardener Plant Clinic first, then request your local horticulture agent, and we can help you out.
Great. Let's see, we've got a few more minutes left. Excuse me. Let's see here. Can you all discuss replacing invasive plants with some native or Florida-friendly plants that would stabilize the slope This person wants to remove invasive plants on a slope, but is worried about erosion. Amanda, can you tackle that one?
Yeah, that's a complicated situation because removing the plants by nature, you're immediately going to be causing some soil erosion issues. If you can, I honestly don't have a really good answer for that one because it sounded like it was down the slope was a road. So as long as it's not, because you have to be careful with herbicides as well, because then you get some runoff that can run in, that can create some issues. So I honestly don't know really how to answer that one. You can physically remove the plants. That'll prevent, the runoff of any chemicals that may be an issue. But then you are correct. You're going to lose some of that soil. So plan on trying immediately planting or replanting with natives. You're still going to run into the issue with the seed bank because many of these invasives, I think he had mentioned coral ardesia that puts out so many berries that are almost all fertile. They're all going to produce a new plant. That was one that we tackled quite a bit with the State Park Service. So with that, we did a lot of hand removal. And then you can certainly replant with natives, hopefully sooner rather than later to help prevent some of that erosion. But unfortunately, that's going to be a difficult one. I don't have a really good answer, unfortunately, for that one.
Well, I was going to say for plants, suggestions, if it's in full sun, which it doesn't sound like it is, it sounds like it's more in a woody understory situation, but grasses always do a great job, or I shouldn't say always, but generally, they do a great job stabilizing soil banks. So like sand cordgrass, Gulf muley grass, those would all be Elliot's lovegrass, some suggestions for natives that can help stabilize, but it sounds like you're more in a wooded area. So that's going to be a little bit more complicated plant selection there.
Grass, yeah, that's an excellent one. The grasses are native to sand dunes and they hold on to soil erosion. I'm wondering if like Elliot's lovegrass or purple lovegrass may be more tolerant of more shady or partial shady conditions.
But also maybe if it's a really large area, not trying to attack it all at one time, doing small sections, allowing the new plant material to get roots established. Maybe in layers you could attack it so that you don't have a whole side of a bank that's exposed all at one time. And then we get a hurricane that comes through.
Right.
Very good
Right.
suggestion.
Mark, let's do one or two more questions. How long should I water my new food plants?
All right, good question. I'm glad that was asked because I did mention about it briefly that that's probably the number one mistake that happens when you're installing any kind of plant, whether it's edible or not, is not giving it the time to establish. So if you have a really large fruit tree, for example, say one is like 20-gallon pots or whatnot, they're going to take proportionally even longer to get established than say a smaller kind of a plant. So basically, I'm going to say minimum 4 to 6 months of regular light irrigation for most plants is what we would recommend. But for larger plants, like really large landscape plants, it may be even longer than that. That's why it's so important to have irrigation set up during the establishment phase. And again, it is proportional to the size of the plant. So it's very important that that is understood because I have seen firsthand many plants, in fact, hundreds of plants that simply get planted, watered once, and that's it. So, so the rate, you don't want to overwater, of course. You don't just, I've actually seen, on the other hand, take a garden hose, leave it on full blast for an hour on like a 3-gallon pot. Okay, seriously, like hundreds of gallons wasted. So you want to keep it consistently moist, but not saturated for, I would say, a minimum of 4 to 6 months, speaking very generally. But it could be even longer for larger plants.
And I would say that you could probably set up a temporary irrigation system
Right.
as well.
Of course, and do keep in mind that if we have a lot of rain come down, you don't necessarily have to have irrigation when we have like a rainy season. In our area, we don't get any rain typically in May, but around early June, we start seeing the rain happen. So you don't necessarily have to irrigate through the rain. So I hope that's understood as well.
Good, thank you. Would anybody like to make a sort of a closing comment? We've got 2 minutes. Is there anything that we didn't discuss that you wanted to get out there? Anybody? If not, that's all right. I just wanted to give you all a chance.
No, I just wanted to emphasize, because there was several very specific questions that
Mhm.
we could not address today. So I really want to encourage everyone to reach out to their local extension service. There's one in every county of the state, and they will be more than happy to address those very specific questions we just didn't have the time to get to today.
That's a great point. Also on the Florida Friendly website, if you go to the very bottom of the page, there is an Ask the Expert link. And if you choose your county, that question will go straight to the county. So the county extension. So that's a great way to get in touch. There is also a link to find and click on your county and get a link that way as well to somebody in your county that can help. Michelle, Brooke, Mark, and Amanda, I thank you so much for coming on and answering questions. I know this is a different format than what we usually do for webinars, homeowner webinars, but it was definitely requested several times. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And if anybody needs to rewatch this, it will be posted on YouTube. You can get there through our webinar site. Hopefully within the week, it will be posted. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next month with Dr. Schutzman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.